Hey everyone, this is Curb Knight, bringing you another standard match and some more set 10 content, because on the left we do have Darren playing his favorite deck, Drajeweled, excuse me, and on the right we do have another Greedon player. I don't know why I subject myself to the torment that is trying to commentate Greedon matches, but here we are. I've got my deck log pulled up with all the Greedon cards, so maybe I'll get some things right this time. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into the match. So Greedon is going to be going first, just riding into that grade 1 and passing. Going over to Dragjeweled, we are just riding into that Jewel Core. Is it Jewel Core? Or is it Jewel Neil? I don't know, it doesn't matter. I think it's Jewel Core. But anyways, enough of me not doing things correctly and just making things up as I go. Just agreed on, we are just going to be swinging for that 10. Looks like we're hitting with a OT to pass. Not going to hit it, fortunately enough, because if Greedon hits that offensive Dark States OT, a lot of the times it is just over there and then. So looks like we are actually going to be calling the Jewel Core behind the Jewel Neil and swinging at the Vanguard for that 28, kind of guaranteeing that hit. And then, of course, with the Jewel Neil skill, we do get to Soul Charge one. Looks like we ended up Soul Charging one of those Rocky Goras. Definitely not the card you'd kind of want to be Soul Charging. You'd rather have that in your hand. But we'll see how it turns out for Drajeweled. We did see him discard that Mask, which, in case you don't know, Drajewel is another one of those decks that did get a Mask during set 10. So moving back to the game, we've got Greedon riding up into that Greedon itself and actually putting a copy of Persona Ride in Soul as the cost to search out that grade 2. Definitely an interesting kind of play. I think the player playing Greedon today is actually a little bit newer to the deck, so please forgive any mistakes that he might make or any misplays. It's fine. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah, about putting the Greedon. I know you do want to get the Greedon into the Soul, but in all honesty, you probably would prefer to just like Persona Ride next turn. You're not really in danger of being pushed to 6 this turn, but you know, the option's there, I suppose. But there's definitely a lot of other cards that we could have put in. We actually called that, oh, I remember his name because he has a really funny lore, the Dough Fund. If you have time, I recommend go look up Desire Devil Dough Fund and read his flavor text. It's really funny. It does actually have an on place where you get a soul charge too, which honestly I think we probably should have gone for, because Greedon does need to get to that 10 soul in order to reach the extra 15k, which is honestly what makes Greedon actually threatening. But we are going to be putting 2 more copies of the plus 5k limit break, as well as I believe we put the alligator, which I think was supposed to countercharge, if I'm correct. It looks like it's not really going to matter because we are actually just going to be healing down. And we did also put in that, what is it called, Kennel or something, Keenan, which called that other copy of the grade 2 from the ride line, which is actually very good. Looks like we did hit a defensive critical trigger there. I forgot to mention that Greedon did actually hit a critical trigger on that first drive check, meaning that we were pushed to 2, and then since we took the second Greedon attack, we are pushing to 4, and then just going to be opting to take that Dough Fund's attack and actually going into grade 3 at 5 damage. Definitely not what you want to be doing when you're basically playing any game. But we are seeing the Jewel Neil skill on place over the Dragjeweled. We do have to Soul Charge 1, and then since we do have those 3 or more cards in the Soul, we do get to draw 1 card, activating the Masques and actually whiffing off of it. I believe in Darren's current build, we do only have the 4 copies of Mask as our search target, so it's not entirely uncommon that you would miss off that. I mean, even if you're playing wrenches, it is super common to actually miss on the Masques. And like I said in my Leonore deck profile, sometimes it is kind of just a -1. But anyways, we are seeing the beginning of a board here, calling down the Swirler, Soul Charging, and then calling down the Guggen Ram, Soul Charging once more, and then using that Drajewel skill to counterblast 1 and Soul Charge even 2 more, meaning that Brainwash Swirler has seen the 4 soul charges, and then of course we are using the Mask skill. Sorry, I'm getting a little far behind. We put it into soul, and then we get a superior ride the Drajewel Mask in and activate our Persona Ride since the opponent is at that grade 3. And now we are calling that double Rocky Gore. So honestly, taking all that damage is gonna let us do a whole bunch of funny little plays this turn. So Unfortunately, the opponent is at 1, so even though we are going to be swinging for really big numbers and hitting for a lot of damage, it's not realistically going to matter that much. Looks like we are using the Gugaram to draw 1 card and then swing with the Rocky Gore. It gets plus 10k since the opponent is on grade 3, as well as getting the 10k from the Persona Ride. Unfortunately, that first swing is going to actually hit into a defensive, and then we see an OT come down as second damage. Although Dragjewel, remember, is the one deck that actually does not care if the opponent hits OT, because as we're going to be seeing here, the Dragjewel Masques does have the skill to Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 4 cards with different grades, and then reduce the opponent's power to 1, as well as retire 2 of the opponent's rear guards. Of course, there is only 1 rear guard left, so we're just going to retire that, put the Greedon from 100 million back down to 1, and then counterblasting the 2 to restand both Rocky Gores. Going to be PGing that Vanguard attack, swinging the first Rocky Gore, and be hitting into a defensive trigger, although it doesn't really matter because the second Rocky Gore is going to connect, just pushing the Greedon to 4. So as I said, being 1 at that situation, that probably would have been a much deadlier attack if Greedon were at a higher damage, but given the fact that we weren't, it's not really going to do too much. Anyways, we are actually calling down the Greedon, which is a very interesting play. I think what we're trying to do here is just get the 2 copies of Greedon in the skull sold in order to use Dauphin's skill. But, you know, there is a better way to actually get a second Greedon in the soul, and it's called Persona Riding. But looks like we are calling out a lot of our hand, including 2 triggers. One that we got off the Keenan, along with that Greedon, and then a critical trigger from hand, as well as that bird, who is a promo. I know what it does. What's its name? Let's see. Okay, I'm missing things. Anyways, we are going to, I believe that was a 2 to pass. We hit into a critical trigger. So this Greedon is actually going to be swinging for, I think I miscalculated. I think this Greedon should be an extra 10k more because we do have the limit break removers in the soul. So I believe it should actually have swung for 23. So I think that if we got it with a 15, that would have been a, what is it, 2 to pass or 1 to pass. But looks like we are swinging with the Falcon guy, and he's going to allow you to put up to, oh, his name is Kondoku or Kodoku. Yeah, whatever. Let's you put up to 4 units or normal units from your drop zone into the deck, and if you put 2 or more, it gets an extra 10k. Oh, you actually have to return more, exactly 4 in order to get that 10k. But anyways, this Greedon is going to be swinging for 23. I think it should actually be at 33, but I think we might have miscalculated because as you saw, we did guard for exactly 33. So that would have been a 1 to pass with the current 23. But if we had calculated those grade 2s from the ride line, I believe that should have actually been a 33. So quite a few misplays, but you know, it's a locals game. Let's not take it too seriously, guys. Anyways, looks like we do call out that second Gugaram, soul charging and then using its skill in order to draw a card. Looks like we drew into a heal trigger, which kind of sucks because we definitely would have loved to actually hit that. Heal down to 4 at least, make things a little bit better. But going into this turn is very awkward. We did blow through pretty much almost all of our counterblast last turn. We used 1 for the base Dragjewel, 1 for the Masques Dragjewel, and then we also used 2 for Rock Gores. I believe we're seeing the Dragjewel Masques using its skill here. You can actually banish another copy of a differently named Drajeweled in order to, what is it? It gets +1 critical, and then you choose 2 cards from your drop zone, and you do actually put them into your soul. So we do see the Rock Gore here, but unfortunately we aren't going to be swinging with it because Dragjewel Masques, for whatever reason, requires a counterblast now. So that's going to be our last counterblast going to the Dragjewel Masques in order to put him back down to 1, as well as retiring that Kodoku. Looks like it's going to be hit with another PG, hitting into a critical trigger here. Pretty good. Unfortunately, we would have to connect with both of these attacks to actually kill the opponent here, because we do have those 2 copies of Greedon in the soul, meaning that we do not die until we reach, what is it, 7 damage. Yeah. So we've got 2 more swings here. Not too powerful. I don't think we Persona Rode this turn. We've got an 18, and I think that's also an 18 just because we didn't actually see any soul charge, because in case you don't know, wait, we did see 1 soul charge. We saw the Gugaram. So this is gonna be swinging a 38 1828. Did we Persona Ride? I don't know. I might have missed it. I'm such a bad commentator, guys. I keep talking about other things and I don't pay attention to what's actually happening on the screen. So I'm guessing we probably Persona Ride if we're actually hitting for 33. So I believe this is the one with the crit, so we do actually have to guard this or we will lose. We are at just at 1, so we are going to have to commit that 35-point guard. So honestly, running a little low on cards in hand, which is not something you want to be doing when you're playing Greedon, because obviously you do need to commit at least 4 cards to board. And I believe at this situation we do have, is that exactly 4 in hand? So looks like we are going to have to call our entire hand down if we want to actually use that Greedon skill, calling down another dough fund. Looks like we choose not to use the skill. We could soul charge 2. I believe that would have brought us to the 10 soul on the swing, on the second swing. Going to be using the Greedon skill to soul blast 2. Kind of deciding on what we want to soul blast here. Probably just those 2 triggers, putting those 4 standing rear guards into the soul. There are a couple of skills that we could proc here. We have the alligator, or I guess his name is Kuviski, which would allow you to counter charge, but looks like we're going to forget that skill. And we do also have that little gecko dude, which allows you to counter blast 2 to get an extra drive, which we are also not going to be using for some reason. Probably just forgot. Going to be swinging for, I believe that was a 1 to pass actually, because that was we reached a 10 Solka, so we got 28. I don't think we hit a trigger on the first one, so that would have been like 30 or 33 or 28. I probably 28. I don't think we need to commit the extra 5k though, because if we just did a 28 33, that would have been a 1 to pass anyway. But it looks like we do actually get the Persona Ride off this turn yet again. So unfortunately we are out of counterblast, so our ability to do things, we can't even really put the opponent to 1, because Dragjewel Masques, as Darren puts it, is a fucking terrible card. So we're kind of stuck here. We can't even take any more damage because we're at 5. So basically it's either see your counter charger or bust, because Dragjewel actually did get a counter charger in this last set, but of course I think we have 2 cards in hand, and unfortunately it is just a PG and a critical trigger, meaning that this is going to be, even though we're on a Persona Ride, a fairly vanilla turn. So I think what we do here is we probably just push up the Guggen Ram, swing with the Swirler, swing with the Drajeweled. Maybe just swing Vanguard first. Ooh, it looks like we're actually going to commit the entire hand. Going to try to actually close it out this turn, swinging the Drajewel for that 31. So now we don't actually lose if this connects, but we are going to be hitting a PG. Ooh, nice. A heal trigger, giving the power to that Swirler, healing out a damage. And then looks like we do potentially have enough to close out the game. We do know the drive checks from last turn. I think there is maybe 2 more 5Ks left in hand. So if both of these attacks actually connect, we will be able to finish it off here. But let's see if we can manage that. So the Swirler is going to be swinging for a 24. Not a terrible number, actually, all things considered, but, you know, going to be hitting into a draw trigger, possibly the worst possible outcome you could hope for in this situation. Actually bringing that Greedon up to 23, meaning that this Guggen Ram is not going to be able to hit. I don't know exactly why we're guarding there. Unless I'm missing something, that Guggen Ram should have been at just 22. Unless I mistook where we put the trigger power, in which case it would have been 32, and then the Swirler would have just been, what is that, 1824? I think I might have actually done that. Yeah, I think we did put the trigger power on the Guggen Ram. My bad. I think I did some mistakes in editing. Oh well, that doesn't really matter. We're kind of in the end game here. Greedon doesn't actually have enough cards to call in order to do the restand, so it looks like we're just going to be going for a swing pass. And I believe we did actually use the Dofun skill this time for once. Oops, another editing error. Dang it, editing Carbonite, you really got to get on your game. Anyways, it looks like we are just going to be taking the Greedon swing, hitting into a critical trigger there, and unfortunately that is going to be the end of the match, not hitting into that grade into that OT or that heal trigger, which of course, as always, is just 1 card away. It's always just 1 card away. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. I hope you guys enjoyed.